You know, sometime when I watch all these MLS matches, and when I just, in general, watch all these kind of match week in MLS, sometimes you just got to say to yourself that MLS is actually an amazing league and that it's kind of wacky, and it is just sometimes when you see resort like this, and sometimes when you see games that nobody really cares and that it is going to be the game that nobody's going to watch because other games are more interesting. It turns out that nobody want to watch that game, turns out to be a barn burner, and it turns out to be a shootout like what we saw in this San Jose Earthquake game versus FC Dallas. But either way, of course I will get to this game. I'm actually not going to talk a lot about this game because I just did a stream about this game a couple of minutes ago, so I'm not going to really just repeat myself very much in this video for those of you that did watch my stream. But we will start off with the DC United versus Philly game where the Union took a huge leap to making the playoffs this year, and you could kind of argue this is the win that potentially have carried the Union into the playoffs. Because right now with this win, the Union are 10 points ahead of New England. And, you know, New England does have a game in hand over Philly, but a 10-point gap over the Revs and knowing how the Revs are playing right now, yeah, I have a good feeling the Revs are not going to catch up to the Union. And I think they also built up a 12-point gap over DC and Toronto. I think it might be a 13-point gap. And yes, even though DC still has 2 games in hand over Philly, you know, DC is not going to catch Philly. And right now, with Philly being in just such a good position right now and pulling away from teams that is chasing for those last couple of spots in the Eastern Conference, it would take a massive collapse for the Union to not make the playoffs this season. And I just think in this game, you know, in this 6-pointer game, it just looked like the Union won this game more than DC. I mean, to be fair, DC did look very good early on. You know, Rooney had a couple of chances. I think he also hit the post. But then in the second half, the Union just pretty much took over. And, you know, Sapon, of course, scoring the goal in the first half. And then Pico with the goal in the second half pretty much just sealed it for the Union. And I know some DC fan will be saying that they should have been up 1-0 because of the penalty that wasn't given in the first half with Jack Elliott looked like he handballed it into the box, which, you know, that, for me, it looked like a very 50-50 call, and we've seen at times that is called a handball, and we've seen at times that it's not called a handball, and when I look at it, it does look like Jack Elliott's hand was in an unnatural position, and that probably should have been a penalty. But at the end of the day, when you look at the defense of this DC United team in this game, they were not very good. They were very, very poor. And you look at the Union in this game and how it just, once again, I have to say it again, with the fact that they just look like they are the one that look the more hungry side and look the one that wants to win this game. You know, that's why they got all 3 points in this game. And yeah, I really think the Union is going to make the playoffs this season. And, you know, we'll see if the Union potentially now can start resting some guys. They're not officially clinched the playoff spot, but still they are in a very good position. In fact, I think, speaking of clinching a playoff spot, I think Atlanta has now clinched a playoff spot and they become the first team to clinch a playoff spot in the Eastern Conference, although I think the Red Bulls also clinch a playoff spot with tonight's win. But we all know that they, of course, are going to go to the playoffs this year, and we know that they were going to clinch very soon. But yeah, with the Union, you know, they are in a very good spot of them potentially going to the playoffs, and it's going to be interesting to see how this team is going to do in the playoffs. It's going to be interesting to see how Jim Curtin will potentially take on some very challenging team in the playoffs, because the Eastern Conference playoff picture and just, well, not the playoff picture, but once it gets to the playoff round, it's going to be a very ugly bloodbath with Atlanta, NYCFC, the Red Bulls, and the Crew just going at each other against a couple of teams that just sneaks into the playoffs. And those lesser team in the 5th and 6th spot potentially might not have a chance because of the big three right now in the Eastern Conference. But yeah, moving on, and part of that member of the big three, the New York Red Bulls, won in this game. They beat Houston 1-0. Only goal in this game came from Brian White in the 55th minute, which is his first goal. And it just feels like this season, how many times have we seen a Red Bull player that plays for Red Bulls 2 and now get promoted into the first team, and he scored his first ever MLS goal? I mean, I seen it earlier with Ben Mines scoring a goals early on. It just feels like if you're a Red Bulls 2 player and you get to call up in that Red Bulls team, it's not only an honor, but there's a good chance you're going to score a goal. And that's also to the credit of the Red Bulls 2 and certainly the Red Bulls Academy and certainly their affiliate team, because they are producing very good talent there. And, I said in this game, Chris Armas, it's a bit of a decision for him to make whether if he's going to go for a kind of B squad kind of lineup against Houston because of the fact that they have so many games in these next couple of weeks and that some of their best player like BWP needs a rest. And in fact, in this game, they did rest BWP. I think they also rest Daniel Royer in this game. So, they did go with kind of a B squad and kind of a reserve kind of squad, but they just did enough to beat Houston. And I wouldn't say they just did enough. I think they could have had more in this game. Houston were very, very bad. And I think besides the fact that they hit the post once in this game, they weren't really in this game. And for the Dynamos, there's really not much else for me to say other than the fact that if they weren't eliminated in the playoffs a couple weeks ago unofficially, they probably are unofficially now eliminated in the playoffs. There's just no way this Dynamos team is going to make the playoffs. And they have nobody to blame but themselves, with not just the fact that they haven't been in a very good form, but all those goals that they concede late in the game. If those goals did not happen, we wouldn't be talking about the Dynamos be in this situation where the season could be coming to an end because of all those bad losses and the form that they're in. But yeah, moving on into the next match, and this, talking about this one and talking about the one that I did not go. And before anyone will say that do I regret of me not going to this match and witnessing in person, and I kind of said this in the stream a couple of times, but I'll say it again in this video, is that I do not regret one bit not going to the game. It was the right decision for me to boycott the game. I was just so sick of this team and the way that they were playing, and the fact that it was also a Wednesday game, and usually in a midweek game, I usually don't tend to go. And I even said it probably even before the season that this could potentially be one of those games that I might not attend because it's a midweek games and stuff like that. And it turns out 4 months later, when the team gone completely shit and that I was close to getting to boycotting the game, this was the one that I did. And, this game, in many ways, kind of reminds me of the Orlando City versus Galaxy game a couple of weeks ago, because not only was the same score, but it kind of had the same vibes in that game where there was no defense play in this game. I mean, both defense just completely went to sleep. And, the Quakes gone back to their old defensive form, and FC Dallas just, this defense that I talked about how it's been pretty decent throughout the season, well, they just completely imploded in this game and completely shit the beds by conceding those 4 goals. And the first 2 goals that they conceded to Vaco, oh my goodness, how in the world did they not able to clear the ball into box? Both times, Vaco got really lucky with this goal, and both times he literally won the ball after a couple of FC Dallas defender just failed to clear the ball away. And that just led to 2 goals. That should definitely not happen. And, the third goal by Eriksson, that was just a one that you just kind of had to tip your hats off of him, and certainly I would think this one could potentially be the candidate for goal of the week, and probably this is the best goal we have seen a Quakes player score this season. But, you know, to credit to Dallas, they did try to come back in this game twice, but eventually it just has to be him, guys. It has to be Chris Wondolowski. And who would have thought that starting him in the starting 11 would actually get him some confidence and potentially break that record that he might break before the end of the season. I mean, you know, I guess we all know what happened when he finally get the starting job, and, you know, of how he can definitely make an impact, and he certainly made an impact with this late goal that he scored. And, you know, now he's 4 away from breaking the record, 3 from time from Donovan, and, you know, like I said many times before, I really hope Chris can potentially break the record, and I hope Wando would break the record at home, nevertheless, because, you know, there's just so many bad things that has happened to the Quakes this season. And, you know, this victory doesn't really satisfy me one bit because, 1, the Quakes are having a bad season, and 2, it was a very sloppy game, and it could have gone either way in this game. I mean, Dallas had a couple of big chances. I think their best chance was Hedges missed an absolute sitters from 9 yards out right around the 39th minute. That if he would have put that away, it would have been 2-1 Dallas, and Dallas would have retook the lead, and who knows how that would have went out. So, yeah, you know, it could have gone either way in this game, but in the end, we come out as the team that win this. And who would have thought that the 2 teams that we beat this season, Dallas and Minnesota, who would have thought that we would be doing the double against both of those teams, and yet we just cannot beat anybody else in the league. Yeah, this is a very wacky, but in many ways a turmoil kind of season for the Quakes. But as for FC Dallas, yeah, this is not good. And right now, I can now understand why people don't take Dallas seriously, because there's been times where this team had some games like this one where they just does not play very well. And, you know, they cannot have those kind of games in the playoffs, because if they have these kind of games in the playoffs, then they could be done in the playoffs very soon. And, you know, it's interesting about this Dallas team. I mean, I know before I said that one thing I like about this Dallas team, that, you know, you always get guys that could potentially score goals for this team. You know, you could get maybe Urruti, maybe Mosquera, or even Dominic Obaji potentially scoring the goal from him. And anybody on this team can score goals, which is why it makes it hard for teams to try to break them down. But the problem is that sometimes those guys, you could have times where none of those guys actually make a big impact. And, you know, there's just sometimes these guys, sometimes they score goals, but then at times they just don't score goals at all. And it's just get to a point where I feel the lack of goal scorer and the go-to goal scorer for Dallas is probably going to be one of the biggest downfall, because with the fact that this team does not have a go-to goal scorer on this team, you know, I don't know what's going to happen when playoff time, when all these guys are not performing, and just all these guys are not able to score goals, and that you can't go to your go-to scorer because you just don't have one. But either way, moving on to the final game, just going to quickly talk about it because I need to quickly go take a shower after this. Portland, of course, winning, or no, actually, I got the wrong score here. See what happened when you try to do this very quickly? I make mistake like that. Just like the Quakes defense and FC Dallas defense. Portland actually won this one. I don't know why I put TFC winning this one, but they won this one 2-0 over TFC. Goals from Diego Chara and Guzman. So they have 2 goal scorer in this game that have a combined of just 3 goals this season. And what I'm very shocked about this game is that why in the world did Greg Vanney decided to rest some of his best guys? And that Javinko did not play in this game. And, I just don't get it. Why would you decide to rest some of your guys in a big game against Portland, in a game that, that it's not going to be easy, and you're facing an opponent that's hungry to try to snap out of this winning streak or losing streak. And you're also a team that is kind of like in the same situation as Portland are in, which is you are desperate to get wins so that you can potentially make it to the playoffs. And with the fact that DC United lost tonight, this was a great opportunity to capitalize and just pull ahead of them in terms of the standing. But no, instead, I'm going to risk it here, and I'm going to put some of my backup, thinking that, because of the fact that we have a lot of games coming up and we have a bunch of schedule, maybe we can get away with it, stuff like that. Yeah, it definitely did not get away in this game. And I just think that for TFC, this is kind of the stuff that might be the reason why they're not going to make the playoffs. Like, I just don't get what was Vaney thinking there. Like, he even openly said a couple of days ago that we got to win at least 6 games, and they have 9 remaining. So why in the world did you decide to come into this game and you decided to put your weak squad and rest some of your guys when you know that you have to win 6 of 9, like you say, and that you only have 3 games that you can sacrifice? And why would you take this one as one of the games that you sacrifice and pretend that this doesn't mean anything? I mean, that is just, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever, and I'm pretty sure TFC fan will get into Vanny and get to him, criticize him with this decision, because this was a bad decision by him, and this really kind of single-handedly give Portland the win, because Portland, although they did not play very well in this game, they did just enough to get over the line, which that's something we have seen before from the Timbers at home. And should we talk about what happened in the Guzman goal, of how Michael Bradley just literally single-handedly gifted the Timbers that goal? I mean, on a day where Clint Dempsey did retire from the U.S. men's national team, which, by the way, congratulations to Deuce for his retirement and his great career at the U.S. men's national team, and he will certainly remember as one of the greatest players to ever put on the U.S. men's national team jersey. But I'm hoping that when Michael Bradley does get his resignation from the U.S. men's national team, I can't wait to see what that kind of reaction is. I bet a lot of people will not be having the same reception as what Clint Dempsey received today, mainly because of some of the boneheaded play that he has, and the way that Bradley just gave the ball away and gifted Guzman that goal was a typical U.S. kind of Bradley kind of moment. I mean, yeah, but either way, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash that subscribe button. I'll be doing the match preview on Friday instead of on Thursday, because on Thursday I have to go to a football game. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.